Welcome to WeTalk Miami. This is our first time doing WeTalk in Miami. The show is really all about women, and for men to appreciate the work that women are doing in this world to shape our culture and have been doing for a long, long time. And we call it WeTalk because it's women everywhere talk. And really what is unique about it as well is that the event travels and brings women together on these panels. Women from different walks of life. The three women that I'm about to introduce you to, for example, for this panel, which is looking at how art motivates social change and women's empowerment. As with all of the other panels, everyone's coming from a very different background and bringing a very different skill set to solve problems from different sides of a prism, if you will. And so it makes for a very dynamic conversation. And I want to thank Dell, our lead sponsor, our founding sponsor, who always support creators across many different disciplines and support WeTalk since its inception at South by Southwest earlier this year. And then we have our partners at Working Not Working and Majority and Interlooper Films who have stuck with us and spread the word in great ways. And we're here at the Miami Beach Cinematheque, which was actually the original City Hall of Miami Beach, a gorgeous building. I want to thank them for hosting this Art Basel Wind Down event. And then, of course, we have Deep Eddy Vodka, The Palm by Whispering Angel, and Pierce Media and Associates, as well as local Miamians who received the call and called and wrote and brought together all of these great people and helped us populate these panels. Adrian Bonhase, Liza Walton, Natasha Tauber, Rhonda Mitrani, Margaret Cardillo, and Maylin Dominguez, who runs the New York Film Academy, as well as Sarita. And I just know her as Sarita. She's a mover and shaker. She really runs the Roxy Cinema Hotel in New York, which is like a second home to me, and was responsible for contacting Jimena Caminos on the red telephone, which we all know was a great thing. So Sarita, thank you. Now let's get started. Okay, panel 3, or episode 3, as it were, as all of you on the interweb know it, is really looking at, sort of taking a step back at looking at how socially minded artwork and female artists can come together, make great work, fashion designers, illustrators, interior designers, business owners, lawyers, gallery owners and curators, poets, performance artists, social messengers, and political advocates are all right here. So there's 3 people here, and everything that I just said is represented here in these panels and these panelists. We're looking at how a versatile group exemplifies how powerful women can be in inspiring change across generations. In the case of Barbara Hulanicki, as a Polish-born British designer, Barbara shows us how art and business can be married to elevate women to new heights. In a career spanning decades and propelled by her knack for reinvention, she started out as a fashion illustrator and then was most notably the founder of Biba. The iconic 1960s and 70s British boutiques clientele included celebrities like David Bowie and Mick Jagger. It also gets a shout out, Biba does, in the most recent film about Queen. I don't know if you've seen it, Bohemian Rhapsody, because Freddie Mercury was regularly decorated at Biba. And his outfits are pretty great. I don't know if you consulted on that movie or not, but
no, I didn't.
I thought it was
he really was in the shop
Quite
mostly
often?
before, every day practically with Mary. But it was before he became big star.
Okay.
He was still, but he was incredibly
But you can see in the film,
yeah,
which is so great. You can see that he's just decked. He looks so great in that film, way before that silly band.
He's incredibly clever. I mean, he advised me on a lot of things, like to get the roof garden.
Did you have a roof garden going?
Yes, we had a huge old roof
before
garden.
the High Line?
They said, what?
Before the High Line in New York?
Oh yeah,
I'm just kidding, yeah.
Yes.
Decades before.
He said, get it preserved now. And he was quite right, because they've never been able to ruin it. It was a roof garden that was actually designed in the 30s, and it had a running river, it had flamingos, it had ducks. It was incredible, yeah.
ducks living on the roof?
Yeah.
And where
they
was
used to
this
fly.
exactly?
It was awful because the mother duck used to teach them how to fly off the edge of the roof.
Oh, no.
And you couldn't stop her.
And then they would just plummet?
Yeah, absolutely.
To their death.
Terrible.
That sounds
Awful.
pretty dreadful. Oh my gosh. Anyway, so then you quit that because too many ducks died, and you came down here to to really reinvent yourself. And we were just talking about that on the last episode, how important it is to just take this life that we have and do everything that we hope to, and not let any ideas that are great go by or think that they're impossible and why can't we do them. So off you did, and you came down here and became an interior designer, right?
Well, Biba was all interiors with clothes in it, you see. But I was with Ronnie Wood of the Rolling Stones. He said, oh, I'm doing a club in Miami Beach. Would you like to come? And it's going to take 6 months to do. Miami, try and build something in 6 months.
Well, if you go to a Cuban wedding, they start like, if they're called for 12, it's like 3.
So
I've actually lived my life that
my
way
husband
as a
was
Cuban.
alive and said, come on, let's go. And of course, 3 years later, we're still there. and that was incredible. And then I met somebody else. I met Chris Blackwell from Island Records. And he said, oh, I've just bought 12 buildings. Would you like to do a hotel? And Miami was amazing in those days. You could walk on the beach and get 10 jobs. I'm just building this, I'm just doing a club.
It's incredible.
It was incredible.
So next to you, you have Karla Ferguson.
Yep.
Karla Ferguson is a Jamaican-American art curator and art broker, also a lawyer, which is going to come in handy after this weekend,
Yeah.
I hope.
Yes.
After working as a civil rights attorney, Karla went on to found Miami's own groundbreaking Yeelen Gallery, located in the city's Little Haiti neighborhood. As a socially minded curator and gallery owner, wow, I sound like a New Yorker, Karla focuses on using art to combat stigmas of race, class, and gender, and continually seeks to showcase politically charged artwork that represents stories of identity, struggle, and resilience. Karla is also the founder and CEO of Yeelen Group, an art brokerage firm that partners with artists, galleries, businesses, and collectors to supply buyers with socially minded artwork. She's a key figure in the art scene and serves as a conduit between art and business worlds, working to promote the understanding of art's potential for social change at every level. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having
on
me.
WeTalk. I know that you've been struggling not only with your voice, but also you had a horrible hate crime happen at your gallery yesterday. Is that right?
Well, yesterday we discovered it. Yes.
So maybe Friday night.
Friday night it happened. So sometime after
We're
1
looking
a.m.
at it now.
Yeah. So we had swastikas painted on the side of the building at some point in the middle of the night. And, you know, it was shocking, but it was, for me, not so much of a surprise because what I do, it brings the fear out. You know, it brings these creatures of the night out, and they decide to retaliate occasionally. But for me, you know, it's an opportunity to show that our society is not post-racial. Right? Our society is still dealing with the demons of the past, and we must continue to fight with love and to bring these kind of issues into the light. So, you know, the toughest part was explaining to my children what it was that was on the building. We are a Jamaican Jewish family, and so the idea that you would have a hate symbol that represents racism, that really is impactful for especially, you know, the Jewish members of the family. We left France not that long ago because, you know, the rise of integrist networks and the rise of anti-Semitism felt like it was, becoming a real problem. Where we were living was at the Place d'Israël in the 17th arrondissement, and you would see swastikas occasionally painted there. And, you know, at the time it was, you know, I couldn't believe that this was actually occurring it was an affluent neighborhood, you know. It was by no means the place that you would think that you would just see graffiti. It was also a road that had a lot of embassies and consulates, so they knew the exact place to target in order to get, you know, their message across. And I feel that the work that Yeelen has done in the community since 2006 The people here that like to spread fear, they're also aware that we're a platform for addressing hate and dealing with issues of identity and giving voices to marginalized groups of people. So, you know, I don't think it was a coincidence that this happened. I think the interesting side of it is it happened at a moment where there's a spotlight on the city and a growing awareness in this city that, you know, these hate groups are here. Miami's a very diverse community, and where we're located, it's the intersection of a lot of cultures: Haitian, Jamaican, Dominicans, Cubans, you name it. You know, Little Haiti really does represent it all, and I find that it's very telling that this is where, you know, this kind of violence would take place, but it's also very inspiring to see how the community has rallied behind us and is supporting the efforts to figure out who did it, which, yes, that is important, but what's more important is how we continue to grow and build and to combat the hate.
So are you concerned about your safety? And also, what is the Little Haiti community doing? Because I know that you were really on the front edge of putting a gallery there. That was something that wasn't happening now.
That didn't exist at the time that I opened the space. We had the Little Haiti Cultural Center was there, but no independently owned gallery that wasn't, you know, government funded. The community has been amazing over the years. It was not a neighborhood that was very inviting to the outsiders in appearance. Not inviting in the sense that people weren't hospitable, but it was, you know, it was a kind of, and it was a poor neighborhood, you know, socioeconomically. And so there was violence, there were gangs, there still are. There were, you know, just things that would happen there because no one would pay attention. Maybe we didn't have enough police presence. We didn't have, you know, people that actually cared about what was going on in those corners of the city. So when I first arrived in Little Haiti, the community welcomed me because I decided that the shows I would do there would tell their stories, would tell my story, would tell our story. I did shows such as What's Inside Her Never Dies, A Black Woman's Legacy. The idea was to show the dynamic characteristics of Black women, not just the solid, strong, nothing hurts me kind of interpretation that Hollywood and many filmmakers have decided to portray us as. I wanted to show the side of Black women where we can break down, we can be sad, we can be compassionate. We're not so tough. You know, we're human beings. We are women just as much as anyone else. We've just had to endure a lot more than many other groups. But, you know, it's not really a race and a competition as to who has the most pain either. But, you know, the idea was to give us a more dynamic characteristic. So for me, doing shows such as that show, I also did a show called Trans Cuba, where we were highlighting the LGBTQ communities and transgender people in Cuba. It was a photography show by Marriott Pathy Allen. She's based in New York. And she did compelling work on how Castro's regime really decided to take on the issues of transgenders in the society under Mariela Castro, who was actually a big advocate and wanted to spread awareness as to what was really going on with them, whether, you know, it was just basic medical attention, the issue of prostitution, the issue of the AIDS epidemic. So those, you know, her photo essay really highlighted everything that was taking place in Cuba. And what was profound was that they were light years ahead of the US in how we looked at AIDS at the time when it first, you know, broke out. And, you know, recently we had the passing of, you know, George Bush Sr. And in the news, you know, you had a lot of backlash as to him being, you know, very negative when it came to the AIDS crisis and not taking immediate action and really allowing a lot of people to perish, you know, because he took a point of view that was, you know, really with the religious extremes and decided this was a punishment for these marginalized groups. So it's interesting now that that has come back to the forefront, and it brings Trans Cuba back to my mind and what it was that we were doing there and how other nations have been quick to address the issues, but the US lags behind oftentimes because it hasn't learned to separate church from state.
But do you ever feel like you're preaching to the converted a little bit, or that there's a certain amount of people that come to your gallery that participate in this conversation, and everybody's agreeing with one another, so you're forming this wonderful bubble of feeling like, yeah, we had a, you know how we all have that, we feel like we had a great night of political conversation, socio-political, and we figured some things out, but we're talking to ourselves. How do you get new people to the gallery? How do you galvanize a community?
I've been very instrumental when it comes to implanting myself in various groups, right? So I will hang out with people that are, you know, voting far right, far left, conservative. It really doesn't matter. For me, I can't get to solutions if I don't know what the problems are. So I do my best to talk to everyone and give them a fair shot at, you know, expressing their perspectives. And I invite them to my space. Sometimes I sabotage them in a sense. They don't know what to expect when they arrive. I say, hey, I'm doing a cocktail, you know, we'll have art. I don't even tell them what it is that they're really coming into sometimes. And they show up and they're blown away. But then maybe it's out of being polite. They stay, they listen, they learn something. And I feel like I've accomplished a great deal. And they stick with me and they continue to support us over the years. So yes, you have
one
to-
One person at a time.
One person at a time. You have to go through the back door. You make a seat at the table.
Yeah. Next to you is a woman who I just met recently at the Key West Film Festival with her really, really innovative short film, Supermarket, which I understand is your first scripted film. But Rhonda Mitrani is raised by Cuban and Argentinian parents here in Miami and left town to go to the University of Michigan and then became an editor and edited for Miramax for some years, independent films, and for Showtime and ABC. Made your first documentary, Cuba, Mia, and that premiered at the Miami International Film Festival and was broadcast on PBS. You're also a video artist who exhibits at galleries and fairs around the world and opened the Screening Room. So again, an exhibitor, a new media exhibition space and project space located in Miami. There are so many amazing spaces in Miami. I feel like moving back here, except for the humidity. And so I wanted to show Supermarket, show you a couple of clips about this because Rhonda was inspired by her experience with her own pregnancies to make this short film. We have a pregnant woman in the audience who's probably going to be shocked to the core by this material, but it's just scripted, it's surreal. Killer Impact, a division of Killer Content, actually funded the film, and you're currently writing a feature. Do you want to set up the first clip? It's really about the consumer culture built around expectant mothers. And if you've had a child, you know there's a big business there. Anything you want to say about it? Oh.
That's enough, actually. Consumer culture.
Okay. All right, let's look at the clip.
This isn't working.
Then what do you want?
I want the right to choose what's right for me.
Good. Now turn left. Oh, yeah. Definitely a C-section.
What? I'm just coming to terms with this thing and you've already determined its exit?
Please take a number.
What for?
The butcher.
Haven't you heard what I've said?
Of course. You're not stuck here.
Today's special, try our 2-for-1, a C-section with a tummy tuck.
So actually, this clip is about the rise in. There's two clips. I believe we're going to show. This one is about the rise in C-section rates in our country and all over the world, actually. And you had put it. I love the way you put it before we spoke.
Well, I said it's profit over people, which I feel like we see that infecting so much of our capitalist society. It's just we make decisions, maybe not personally, but on a corporate level, which is personal, by the way. There's this film I saw a long time ago that you should all watch called The Corporation, which actually takes the psychotic person, which is like they have 7 traits what makes a person psychotic as an individual, and compare it to a corporation. And the corporation is like rates off the charts as psychotic. That said, as Jimena pointed out, corporations like Mercedes-Benz that support the arts, there's great companies out there that try to offset some of the harm they're doing with really good things too. We need companies, but C-sections are what, 4 times as expensive or more than a natural childbirth, so they just like schedule you right there?
They prefer to do it, and actually because there are so many women having babies in hospitals these days, it's a faster way of getting the baby out. So they can schedule it, and it's easier for everyone, and it's more profitable.
And is it bad?
And I mean,
is it worse for us?
It's not worse for us, but we're meant to have a baby naturally. And this story actually, the film came about, well, the whole idea of this film is how there's this pregnancy industrial complex waiting to capitalize on women when they first discover they're pregnant. And so after my second child, I was running the screening room. I had already had enough with the absurdities of this pregnancy. I said, someone needs to be talking about this. And I had seen a wonderful documentary called The Business of Being Born by Ricki, which was very inspiring to me. But I thought that I had a C-section, and my doctor said that I was allowed to have a VBAC. I was capable of having a VBAC because there was no reason for me to have a C-section, a cesarean section for my second baby.
A VBAC is
vaginal birth after cesarean, a natural birth. But just when I got pregnant, he said that there was this new regulation that in the hospitals that said that women who had C-sections could no longer have a VBAC. So I was basically a product of a circumstance where I was not allowed to have a baby naturally in a hospital unless a doctor was present 24 hours a day, and no doctor was willing to do that. So I had gone to several places in Miami to see if I could have a VBAC, and everyone closed their door on me, so I kind of felt like a homeless pregnant woman. I said, what's going on here? I felt that there needed to be more support in the healthcare system, and that's when I found a doctor all the way in Hollywood who worked with a midwife, and together they work as a team, and they help women like me who wanted to have a natural birth after cesarean. And so after I had that whole experience, and after experiencing consumer culture in pregnancy, which you might see a clip.
Yeah, we're going to show it, yeah.
I thought, well, someone needs to tell the story.
Okay, let's look at the next clip. Yeah, we're going to show it, yeah.
I thought, well, someone needs to tell the story.
Okay, let's look at the next clip.
You look so much better. Do you want to try? You'll feel very accomplished. You just fill her up and check out.
You look so much better.
Right through there? Uh-huh, and out the door. I'm out of here.
Very accomplished.
Shoot. Okay, there are 60 versions of everything you need. 60 brands, 60 variations, 60 adjustments, and 60 levels from China to Scandinavia. You'll need them all depending on the month.
I could get used to this. It's numbing. You can do without 99% of it. It's essential. Recalled.
Hush.
I mean, there really hasn't been a film that's tackled that subject. And, you know, it's funny because for most of us, it's around now, the holidays, that we're just being bombarded with, you know, you need to buy things, and we all have this like pressure on us. But when you're a mother, you're dealing, or expectant mother, and especially the first time, as this one, as your main protagonist is, it's so overwhelming because you want to do right by, you know, now I want to do right by my living child with the expectations of Hanukkah and Christmas, you know, but then you don't even have a person yet, and you don't know exactly what to do. So it's a very vulnerable position to be in, which you nailed with this film. Given our lack of time, I want to make sure to just include everybody right now. Barbara, you have the greatest perspective of all of us of the obstacles you faced being a woman early on who was an entrepreneur, who was an artist and an entrepreneur, and you founded your company, right, with your husband. Is that right?
Definitely, yeah.
And then, did you ever experience people looking to your husband rather than you as the head of the company, and experience that kind of sexism? How has the world? No, she shakes her head.
No.
Love that.
Our roles were completely apart.
Okay.
When I was dealing with my bit, and I never interfered with his bit, except when I needed him, when there was trouble. And he would just come in and stand there, and everything was solved.
Perfect.
But it worked really well.
He was like your bouncer. Security.
Yeah. No, he was great. I did teach him a lesson once or twice right at the beginning. is when I had these feelings for certain projects to put in the shop, like boots, and I had this overall thing, and he said, no, you can't do that. We've got a load full of shoes in the back, all left feet. You can't have any more shoes in the shop. And then eventually he said, okay, well, let's put in 100. And they sold out in 1 hour. And he said, I'll never interfere with you again. You're psychic.
Now, how
it's interesting.
It's a kind of a complicated question, but as a woman, how do you feel like that was like a special, like what special powers do you think you were able to bring as a designer? And how do you think the designs that you made and the way that you shaped it helped to empower women over the time?
Definitely. But it was a different generation. It was a generation after the war that they were called the war babies, and the mothers had been in the war. It's even like the Queen was shown to be driving a truck. They came back, and the girls were fantastic. They were as tough as an old boot. They were incredible. Fitz, because even sometimes had an office next to the huge changing room where they used to change. He had an office when they came in. The huge changing room morning where they used to change. The uniform. When they came in, I can't believe in the morning. Could hear everything that was going on, and he said, I can't believe what these girls get up to. If I was a man, I'd be terrified. So it was a different generation. They were incredible. Except that, of course, we had these horrendous reps that would come in after their lunch with sort of flies all up down. Be very drunk. So we fixed them. I mean, I did a sort of waiting room for them, which was very, very low table, very long low table, and loads of cushions. So they had to crawl through the cushions to go and sit. And then I would go, come on, Eva, go in your mini skirt. And they would be like that.
How was Bowie?
Oh, gee. And the other thing was just always to fix them by saying, okay, I'm going to give you a huge order. And they would like, ah.
David Bowie, would he order a lot?
Well, no, he wasn't up front. No, this was the reps,
okay.
Representatives.
Oh, yeah, I know. I'm just I'm steering you towards talking about David Bowie.
Oh, okay. No, David Bowie. Mick Jagger used to stand behind, in our first shop, behind Fitz when he was counting the money, the cash.
Stand behind? That's very Mick Jagger.
Yeah.
Very Mick Jagger. Wow. But Bowie, he wasn't concerned with that.
What?
Was Bowie shopping during the Ziggy Stardust phase?
No, he was much later in the big shop.
Okay.
Yeah.
More mod.
Yeah.
Okay. And Rhonda, back to you for a second. Did you ever think about making a documentary about this? Because you come from documentary, right? Or you?
The first film I had made was a doc, and so I had originally thought about telling the stories of documentary, especially the business of being born, having been an inspiration. But then I thought, well, they're just going to want to slice their wrists, you know, after watching all the things that make this industry absurd. Why not tell the story as a comedic satire, a dark satire? So this idea came to me, and I thought, well, it's almost like a hybrid, because you're telling so many truths in the people that you meet while you're pregnant, and you're creating these characters, and they all come from real life stories, but you're telling them through this fictional story, which I think was just a different way. It's almost like the way Alexander Payne used to tell his stories. For example, in the film Thank You for Smoking, that's another, you know, it was a different point of view, and I thought, well, why not give it a try? It was a big risk, because I had never made a fictional piece before, and all of a sudden I was going to be in a supermarket for 4 nights from 6 p.m. to 8 a.m. Breastfeeding. But I thought, well, I have to go for it and see, you know, if this can work. And I believe the message comes across.
Well, we also lead by example. I mean, I was breastfeeding around the world when my movie Dig came out or premiered at Sundance. My son was 11 weeks old. And then it won Sundance, and then he was in 17 countries by the time he was 2. And so I would just breastfeed down the streets of Paris or wherever, and then just pop him off the breast and do a Q&A and come back on. And So many women said that was such an inspiration to them, but I was just getting through the day, you know what I mean? But I think this, all of us being working mothers or, you know, just going about our lives, instead of it being this kind of refined thing, it just makes it frees us from being trapped in that kind of consumer culture loop-de-loo, you know?
And it empowers us. It empowers us.
Yeah, and then Karla, why don't you lead us on, I mean, I think all of us should answer this question as a wrap-up, is just as women, you know, how does that impact your work? How does it impact the way you go about doing what you do?
Well, I mean, as a woman, you know, we know how to multitask. So, speaking of breastfeeding, you know, my daughter's in the audience, and you know, she went through it with me. You know, I had to do things with her, and on the breast, everything. And so you learn to take a phone call or to change a diaper simultaneously, and you know, to please don't talk too loud so that you know I can get through this call or whatever it is. But then at the same time, they get to watch a woman doing something that perhaps, you know, society doesn't promote that much, you know, and they get to say, hey, I can do this, I can be anything that I want to be. And so you have to also keep in mind that, you know, from the perspective of being a mother, you are setting an example, you are a role model for them, and they're watching everything that you do. So everything that you do has to be done with purpose and integrity because they're going to emulate it. So you know, really, that's how I look at it. And also, when it comes to my team, I integrate a lot of women. I work with women, and I tell stories about women. And you know, when men are there, I show them that, you know, they assume sometimes that this group must be ran by a man somewhere. You know, and I'm saying, no, it's not. You know, I can be as tough as nails when it comes to business and negotiating on behalf of my clients. I'm not going to just bend to your will because you see me as the weaker sex.
And at some point you realized, and this is, I think, also very female of you, I have this gallery, I have this space, I represent these artists, I have people, I'm a curator. Mm-hmm. Now let me make sure that it all sells and let me place all that work,
exactly,
right?
Exactly. Yeah, because a lot of the times they think, oh, you're a curator, you're doing shows, you're only interested in the exhibition. But for me, I'm interested in so much more. I'm interested in where does the work get placed after the exhibition? Does the artist make money after? You know, I understand that, especially the women artists that I work with, they have families to take care of, to feed. They are stretching their times between creating in their studios and spending time with their children. So it has to have a reward at the end. There has to be a value placed on their work. And I make sure that their value continues to grow and it's an intrinsic part of what it is that they do. Because I find in this world, I mean, you know, you can call it a man's world, and money talks, right? So when you can say, hey, this painting just sold for upwards of, you know, $50 million. We saw Jenny Seville recently break records, and she's playing with the big boys, right? So the idea for me is to continuously push the value and to continuously say, hey, you may sleep on this artist now, but look at the people that slept on Joan Mitchell and what's happening now with her work. Yep. You know, the ones that slept on Frankenthaler, and look what's happening now. So, you know, you can go ahead and discriminate or you can get on board. Women have ideas, they have a mind that's very strong, they have stories to tell, and they're just as important to the human experience as those of their counterparts.
Yep, so whether we're wearing it, whether we're purveying it, whether we're traveling and going to visit it, or whether we're supporting it with our dollars, or making movies. Exactly. It's really important to tell these stories.
Yes.
And
excuse me, Karla, why didn't you make that awful wall into an art piece?
Well, this is so.
And get all the press on it.
Correct.
And it'll have a history.
Yes. So this morning, actually, I reached out. Yes. This morning, I reached out to an artist that I work with, Yeelen Group. She's a former attorney who went and got her MFA, and she's doing a lot of public art. So she's done murals with the Tampa Art Museum. She's done murals with the African American Museum. She's done work with Nike. So we were texting this morning, and she's got her 2 little sons with her, and she goes, Karla, this is awful what happened. I said, yeah, but this is an opportunity.
Absolutely.
Let's have a paint mural party. Let's put something up there that tells our story. Yes, work it in. You know, And then an uncle of mine sent me an email and he said, I don't think you should take it down.
Yeah, oh, good.
I think you should
Great.
integrate it into whatever you're doing so that we can
Great.
remind people of what happened here.
I think so too. I actually,
Get
Barbara, I'm so
press
glad
on
you
it,
brought that up.
too.
Barbara, that's a great idea.
That'd be a history.
Absolutely.
That's a great idea. That's a really great idea. We should,
Yes, and true.
Karla, it's almost like you should surround it
Yes.
with love.
Yes.
Like
And-
all the whole rest of the wall.
Yes.
Just like encroaching on this because
Correct.
it looks like it doesn't take up all the
No,
whole.
it really doesn't.
It's perfect.
And if I can get the city to move the bus stop over just a little bit, we can.
I mean, look, with the women that we've had here today, you can get the city to do anything.
Correct,
So,
correct.
Anyway, I just want to say thank you to all of you for taking the time to be here, for bringing your insights and wisdom and your wealth of experience and inspiration to WeTalk Miami. Thank you all for being here. Barbara, Karla, Rhonda. Let's give them a round of applause. I'm your host, Ondi Timoner, and it's been my privilege to be in Miami today with all of you. Thank you.
Thank you.
It was great fun.